it's Jason McClaren with the Leadership Loading Podcast, and today we're talking about leadership and yoga as a way of life. Talk a little bit about yoga beyond the mat with Johanna Godinez. I'm probably saying that wrong, but I'm sure she'll correct me. So, Johanna is a personal life assistant for everyone, really. She's a businesswoman with an MBA and spent the last 10 years as a lifestyle success coach, and is the founder of Beyond Asana Yoga School. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So before I just read her resume to you, welcome to the show, Johanna.
Thank you so much. Such an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
So how did you get into yoga, first of all, and then we'll talk about how you got your own business going?
Absolutely. Well, it all started actually after I finished my MBA. I owned a business after I got my bachelor's, so I never actually worked for anyone else. And after I got my MBA, I figured, the corporate world sounds like somewhere where I need to be due to my education. And it was the end of 2007, beginning of 2008, and the economy wasn't doing very well. So I went to 32 interviews, and either I didn't have enough experience or I was overqualified. And I went into a terrible depression. And I didn't want to take medication for it because I feel like if my situation is what's causing the problem and you're not addressing my situation, no amount of drugs are going to change that. So my psychologist at the time was like, the only other suggestion I can give you is to work out. And I had been an athlete. I had been a gymnast and a yogi, and I used to race cars, but I had never actually spent time at a gym. So I decided to go somewhere called the Hilton Head Health Institute to kind of teach me what this world of working out was about. And I fell in love. So instead of getting into the corporate world, I was in the corporate world for about 6 months. And then I decided to start a wellness company. It started as corporate wellness. So I would bring programs to help them get decreases on their premiums due to these wellness and health programs that they had for their employees. And after about 5 years of doing that, I sort of figured out, I got certified for yoga in 2011. So that's 2008 to 2011. And by 2005 or 15, I knew that what I was doing in fitness wasn't enough. Like, it's one thing. Basically, I was being a doctor. You have a symptom and I'm treating your symptom, but what led you to get to where you are? And that sent me on this crazy journey of understanding humans and understanding our minds and understanding our habits and our mindset. And it changed everything really for me, because I started the coaching company and then I built the yoga school because I felt like we were doing a disservice to society, telling them that yoga is a physical practice when it's not. Like, we're missing the whole true benefit of yoga, which is right here: how you control your mind, how you focus your mind, and how you manifest. It's all about manifesting.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the listeners will kind of relate to that, interviewing for dozens and dozens of jobs and not hearing back, or not, being told that, they're going to look at other candidates. And beyond just yoga, it could also be just anything that is in your mindset and making you look outside of what's dragging you down and get you back into moving forward and having that way to develop new habits.
Correct. And that's basically what we do. So we have two branches of our company. So Bay Lifestyle is the main company, but Bay stands for Beyond Asana Yoga. And Bay Lifestyle is our coaching business. So our coaching business, what we do is we use the philosophy of yoga, which is yoga chitta vritti nirodha. That's in Sanskrit. And it means yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of your mind. So what are the fluctuations of the mind? They're the things that keep us in loops, and they're the patterns that cause us to be having these conversations that lead to emotional shifts. And then, of course, that leads to actions that are based on emotion instead of logic and you really thinking about what you need to do. So what I did was I developed a system called the ELM, which is an evolutionary life mapping method. And what we do is we look at all of the things that make you who you are and what you are, and all of the things that are external to you, which is what you do. So internally, it's your mindset, your health, your psychology, your spirituality, your emotions. And then externally, it's your relationships, your environment, your career, your finances. And we look at where there's an imbalance and what's causing those fluctuations of your mind. And then we put a team in place to help you deal with those situations, because we are not here to work. We're not here to have a job, to do that stuff. We created a really messed up system in society that keeps us basically in jail our whole life. And it's up to us to understand that, and to understand that when we focus our mind and when we have a purpose and a vision of where we want to go, using our skills and our innate gifts to elevate others and their innate gifts. And that's really what we're here for. So I could say that I've been retired since 2008 because I have never worked ever. I love what I do. I wake up at 5:30 every morning, ready to roll. I don't want to stay in bed. I don't want to sleep longer. I want to get up and I want to do what I'm doing. And I can't say it's easy. I started in 2008. It's 2022. I've been wanting to build a retreat center since then. I'm just starting now. I have the land, I have it, but that's how long my vision is. So instant gratification isn't going to get you there. It's a lot of planning. It's a lot of understanding what moving parts need to put into place. So it's really up to us to reflect on who we are to be able to make those things happen.
Definitely. And I think I like your tailored approach to the coaching, because I think a lot of people that look for coaches, the coaches will do a kind of like a one-off thing, or not one-off, like a package deal type deal, and they just kind of spit out the same stuff and the general issues. But people that are probably listening to this show need something that's more tailored to them, because each one of them is different and has different backgrounds. And like you said, you can't just wing it, basically, especially when you're transitioning careers or trying to grow a business. You need to have that strategy and like you mentioned, the mind map. I think a lot of first responders and veterans, unless you're in the leadership field already in those organizations, we're kind of always just response, and put out the fire when we get the call and go and take care of business and reset and do it again. Unless you're in like a chief role or something like that, you're not usually strategically planning ahead. And so I think that's one way your tools are helpful to those type of people.
Absolutely. And you hit a great point. I cannot have a program for everyone because nobody is the same. And that's exactly why I built what I built. Like literally you get the most benefit out of my program in the first 2 days. Like 90% of what happens in the first 2 days, which is in the life map. And why? Because when you sit back and you look at your life objectively, you understand things from a completely different point of view, and you can see things from a completely different point of view. And then to your other point about planning and reacting, you guys are taught to always react. And then you come out in the real world, then you're told, oh, no, you must take the action and you must create the action. But there is a disconnect. It's the same thing when people go to jail. You put them in jail and then you take them out and you're like, I'm going to stamp a felony tattoo right on your forehead. And I'm not going to tell you how you can get out of that. You're just good luck with that. Bye.
Get a good lawyer.
Yeah. Like one of my desires in this world for my life is for first-time felons, once they get out of jail, to be able to do something to prove that they don't deserve that title. Because if I made a mistake when I was 15 years old and I'm 40 years old and I spent 25 years in prison, I'm gonna come out and you're still gonna hold me accountable for what I did when I was 15? No, I'm sorry. That's just not, I'm not the same person that I was 2 weeks ago. much less 10 years ago, much less 25 years ago. So it's ridiculous for you to hold someone accountable who went to jail and paid for their price, right? Like, and it's the same thing with veterans. They go into the Army, they go into the Navy, they go into the Marines, they give everything they have, putting their life on the line. They say, I am willing to lose my life for you. But then what are they getting back? Because more than half of the people that are on the streets are veterans. And that's not acceptable. There's abundance everywhere. So they deserve just as much help to transition as anybody else, because they are such incredibly important members of society when it comes to protecting our country. So why aren't we protecting them?
Definitely. And so we've talked a lot about physical, emotional health, spiritual health. I think one of the key things that we didn't cover in relation to all this is relationship and social interactions, because that's one area a lot of us veterans, I say us veterans, we're social around other veterans, but when we get into bigger groups, and even police, I've seen do this, and fire, we get really situationally aware, and so we start to get tunnel vision, and we start focusing on, okay, where's the threat coming from? Where is the hazard in this area? And even as a firefighter, if you're not like in personal safety, you might be wondering, okay, where's the fire exits? What's not safe in this building? So how can we kind of turn that off and get more in tune with the social interactions and build our relationships, make sure that we're using those types of events to better ourselves and move forward?
So I think turning it off is not the right way to go about it, because you're not going to be able to do that, because you're trained in this way. And now that's a very embedded pattern. So I would say, instead of thinking of how to turn it off or make it go away, you already know that that's a part of you. So get to the place, scope everything you need to scope out, and figure out, where can I position myself where I will feel the most confident, and then work from there. Because this is something that's going to be innately in you. And me asking you to change that isn't realistic, because that's a thought pattern. Okay, we don't choose our first thought. Let me repeat that. You don't choose your thoughts. They just pop up. You didn't decide for the thought to come up. What you do control is the conversation that happens with that thought. So if the conversation is turning into something that you are feeling, your energy and your vibration shifting and your emotions shifting, there has to be something that flips the switch. I love using Mel Robbins. She has this system where you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you input a new thought in there. But in order to do that, you must think already about, what is that thing that I want to put into my mind? So a lot of this is understanding how we operate, not judging it as something bad, but just understanding it. Because the thing is, there is no perfect human. Nobody, not one. We all have our demons. We all have our things that make us tick. The difference is what you do with that, and how, whether you control your reaction to that, or that is what controls you. So the point of it is not trying to stop something from happening, because that's when people say, oh, meditation, I'm trying to stop my thoughts. That's bullshit. That's not what meditation is. Like, you're wrong. So you're never going to be able to do that. That's impossible. So yeah, you struggle with meditation, because what you're trying to do is not really humanly possible. Your brain is meant to think. It's going to think. But what are you trying to do? You're trying to figure out the patterns, how you react to the thoughts, where you get the emotional shifts, where you go down that rabbit hole that gives you anxiety and starts to get that feeling like you're going to have a panic attack. It's that part that we start becoming aware of. And then when you feel yourself in there, you go, wait, this is all in my head. I'm literally just causing this because of my conversation. And then you ask yourself, 1, is this threat real? 2, is this conversation even a possibility? And then 3, look around. Again, make sure that you're positioning yourself. Like, for example, I have an ex who, if he was in a restaurant, he needed a corner table with his back to that corner so that he could be aware of, like you said, where the exits are, where people are coming in, who's going out. So we would make sure that we would just go into a restaurant and be like, we want that table, or that table. Period. Take it out of the equation. If you know that it bothers you to sit any other way, then don't sit any other way. Like don't put yourself in those situations knowing that it's going to cause you anxiety. Now, on another side of that coin, he took me to a concert once and I pulled them and dragged them all the way to the front. When I looked back, he was that close to having a panic attack. I helped him breathe through it. Then the music started. At one point, they put a huge piece of wood, and we held up the drummer in our hands. And afterwards, when he got to think about the situation, he was like, I'm glad that you pulled me through. I'm glad that I overcame that. That was the funnest concert I've ever been to. In a long time, I hadn't let myself feel that way. So it's also putting yourself in those situations that make you uncomfortable and breathing through them and noticing why they're making you uncomfortable and starting to dig into where that's coming from so that you can go to the root cause and actually start working with what is causing that to begin with. That's 1. 2, hypnotherapists. I can't say this enough. What hypnotherapist does, and I'm not a hypnotherapist, but I have one and she's amazing. And what they do is basically they drill a hole into your subconscious and make it easier for those programs to be switched out. Because the way we operate is based on 2 things, our DNA and our conditioning. It's very hard to change your genetic expression. It's not impossible, but it's hard. It's those aha moments that completely change the way you see the world. You are changing your genetic expression when that happens. But then the second one is your conditioning. And your conditioning changes when you learn something new that shifts the way that you look at things. It basically cleanses the lens with which you see the world, which is what causes your reality. Because reality isn't real. There is no reality. It's just what you're thinking that's happening. So once you start kind of viewing life from that perspective, you kind of see yourself from the outside and you become what I mentioned before. You become the observer. As the observer, you start to watch the shifts happening to the human instead of thinking they're happening to me. Because a part of what I teach is you're really not important. Like, we're not important. Nothing that we think is important actually matters. None of this experience of life matters. We create everything, and your choices led you to where you are. So you must look at what these choices are and what these situations are, and then start to figure out how to move forward from them. And a lot of it is taking responsibility for how we're showing up. And in the case of people that have gone through these really, really traumatic experiences, they tend to feel like that happened to me. And that's the little switch that we need to make. No, this just happened. It didn't happen to you. It just happened. It was just an experience. You just happen to be aware that this experience is happening. It's like backing up from it and not thinking it's happening to me, just seeing it as I'm part of what's happening. And that's where yoga really comes in, right? The philosophy of yoga gives you the tools that you need to understand that you can transcend this human thing that you think you are, because you're not. You're God. You're freaking God here on earth, having an experience and creating an experience. So if you become the victim of the experience, you lose your power. You literally give it away. That's hell. That's what being in hell means. Being in heaven means you understanding your God and creating and being a part of the experience and really enjoying the experience. And I know that this may be something that people they just can't comprehend, but yeah, it's important to learn to see ourselves that way, because it's empowering, and it helps you really take ownership of where you are and where you want your life to be.
Definitely. And Johanna, if we wanted to get a hold of you after this, how could listeners get a hold of you?
Oh my God, I would love it if you'd call me. My number is 815-501-5070. If I don't answer, I'm with a client, so leave me a message or text me. You can connect with me in social media at Bay_lifestyle PR. That's in Instagram, and just Johanna Godinez Nash on Facebook. And yeah, I do some events and I'm always speaking. And if you guys ever need me for anything, volunteering my time to elevate others is part of my dharma, and dharma is my purpose. So yeah, anything I can do.
All right. And we'll put all those links in the show notes below. Johanna, thanks for coming on the show.
There are thousands of leadership and management podcasts to choose from. We're glad you chose the Leadership Loading Podcast, a Go Heroes production. If you'd like to support Go Heroes Inc., visit www.goheroes.org. And with that, it's time to wrap up today's show. Thank you so much for listening. We sincerely hope you liked it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your family and friends. Let's all grow together. Thanks for listening to the Leadership Loading Podcast. Leadership Inspired.